Bloating is something that has become considered normal in our society. Everyone has bloating for some reason or other, and this is just, I mean, we've just really considered as whatever, I'm bloated today. Don't really know why, but I'm going to kind of explore some reasons for why we experience so much bloating. My name is Haley Gibson. I'm a functional diagnostic nutritionist as well as registered nurse. I work at Exodus Health Center and drjockers.com. I work with clients all over the world and help them solve their digestive issues, their hormone problems, their adrenal fatigue, whatever it may be. I help them dive into the root cause of their problems and set up a plan for them to get better. So I'll talk a little bit more about myself in a moment, but today's topic is bloating. This is titled 5 Reasons Why You Have a Bloated Stomach, but I'm going to add one more for us ladies out there. Yes, you guessed it. Our good friend estrogen is another cause of a bloated stomach. But unfortunately, so many people in our society today struggle with bloating. Some of the major triggers we can look at include, of course, a poor diet, exposure to toxins and medication usage. With so many triggers to a bloated stomach affecting us, it is easy to understand why so many people today struggle with it. It is just very common, and of course, 5 million things can cause bloating, so it's really hard to determine what's causing it sometimes. A bloated stomach is extremely uncomfortable. I know for me, when I used to bloat really bad, I wouldn't even want to put on clothes that fit me. It was constricting. I felt like I didn't want to be in pictures. I was just very self-conscious about being out in public, so it did impair my relationships with other people. It's just uncomfortable. It can be really embarrassing. It can even be full of gas. So you don't really want anybody touching you if your belly's full of gas and you're worried about what might happen. You may have to run urgently to the bathroom. It's a really serious problem. I think bloating is overlooked oftentimes, but if you do experience this, your body's trying to tell you something. This can be a sign that you're sensitive to something or that you have some type of bacterial or yeast overgrowth. Something may be going on that is contributing to this. A little bit about myself before I dive into all the reasons that we could be experiencing bloating, or at least some of them. I just want to talk about myself for a moment. So like I said, my name is Haley, functional nutritionist, registered nurse. I work at a health clinic in Georgia, Exodus Health Center. Fantastic place, upbeat environment. We help patients every day get to the root cause of their issues. I mean, everything from I've seen cancer be healed, to healing diabetes, to healing digestive disorders, autoimmune issues. We cover really just about any disease out there. We do our best to help you find the right diet plan and supplementation plan for you. And we work closely with you. We listen to you. I also work at drjockers.com. We do consults with people from all over the world, like I said. You can email me at nutrition@drjockers.com for more information. So these are just a few pictures of my family and my fiance. We're currently planning a wedding, having loads of fun doing that. All right, let's jump into the topic. So these are just the top 10 ways of how to get rid of bloating, just a few ways. We'll talk about those in just a moment. So stomach bloat can actually result from accumulated gas within the digestive tract that causes the stomach to protrude forward. This can make the stomach tender, can make it painful. You may recall someone joking that they appeared pregnant. I know that's something that I say often whenever I'm bloated. Look, I'm pregnant. So unlike fat, bloating is temporary and it doesn't cause the gaining of mass around the stomach. It is simply the result of air compacted around. People incorrectly assume that bloating is just water weight or that it is caused by the storage of added fat mass around the abdomen. Fluid cannot build up in the stomach, but you may experience water retention in areas like your face, ankles, or feet. Some conditions can cause both water retention and stomach bloating at the same time. So, some triggers we'll talk about in a moment. So this slide covers some things. If you're struggling with bloating, some good things to try would be bone broth, sipping on bone broth throughout the day, healing that gut lining. Whenever our gut lining is impaired, it can cause bloating to happen. It can also allow food sensitivities to begin to happen. So we want to heal the gut lining. Activated charcoal is really great because what it's going to do is soak up extra toxins that we have, or if we have food sensitivities, it will help soak those up if it's taken with the food. So we actually want to take activated charcoal 90 minutes away from all food and supplements. When you're taking it with a food sensitivity, that would be unknown food sensitivity. So you're having like what you call a cheat meal and you go take the charcoal with the food you're having. That is not recommended to do all the time. That is just like a every now and then thing to do to help decrease symptoms of bloating. Apple cider vinegar, fantastic for improving stomach acid levels. We'll talk about that more in a bit. Peppermint and ginger, fantastic for helping getting the bowels moving and improving bloating. So here are the 5 main causes of bloating: low stomach acid levels, poor gallbladder function, bacterial overgrowth, candida overgrowth, and food sensitivities. Those are the 5 main ones that I see the most often. So an impaired ability to metabolize sugar and carbohydrates. Some people may be lacking the presence of specific enzymes needed to completely digest complex sugars. You could also be missing some of the bacteria that are necessary in order to break down complex sugars. So if you're eating even sweet potatoes, a healthy carb, if you're eating sweet potatoes and you don't have the bacteria needed to break down these sweet potatoes, or if you have overgrowth of a certain bacteria, this can cause bloating. Our gut microbiome is a very powerful, I don't know a good word for it. It's just a very powerful thing that we have that keeps us digesting our food properly and extracting our nutrients appropriately. Incomplete protein digestion is often due to low stomach acid, and this can definitely cause early fermentation in the gut by bacteria, and then it can also cause bloating. So if you think about stomach acid, what is it supposed to do? It is supposed to be acidic enough to break down our foods, kill off pathogens in the foods, and break down each component of the different macronutrients and micronutrients present in those foods. So when we eat protein, we need a good amount of stomach acid to break those down into the individual amino acids so that we can utilize them appropriately. If we don't have this process happen in the stomach, these foods then pass through our stomach into our intestine, and they're not fully digested for the intestine, meaning that bloating can occur and indigestion can happen. As well as nutritional deficiencies. So an imbalanced gut flora, like I said, we have trillions of good and bad bacteria, and they compete together. They compete for room, they compete for food, and when the unhealthy bacteria are higher in presence, this can result in excessive gas and lead to the bloating we were just talking about. Now, food sensitivities, this is more related to the immune system overreacting and causing inflammation in the bowels, which can also cause the bloating sensation. So one of the most common issues is stomach acid. One of the things I like to touch on with stomach acid is if you think of what it's supposed to do, break down our foods, like I just mentioned, it also triggers our release of pepsin, intrinsic factor, and it also triggers off the closure of the sphincter in between the esophagus and the stomach. So if we don't have enough stomach acid, or it's just too alkaline, maybe it's too neutral is a good way to put it. Like whenever we take antacids or something like that to help, quote unquote, with digestion, this actually decreases our stomach acid and does not help the problem. So whenever we have too low of stomach acid, our sphincter at the top of the stomach stays open. It's not triggered to close, and then acid can actually flow back into the esophagus. So that can cause signs of reflux disease. This little bacteria you see on the screen, Helicobacter pylori, this pathogen, it's a bacteria, it thrives in the stomach. It can actually take root in the stomach lining. And then whenever we try to increase stomach acid, like whenever we eat, it actually secretes something called urease, and urease is going to lower the stomach acid again. So H. pylori, very dangerous. It lowers stomach acid, which makes you have acid reflux over and over and over again. So this is something that must be eradicated. It can lead to nutritional deficiencies, which can lead to things like osteoporosis. The list really goes on and on there. Anemia, all sorts of things. You must have good stomach acid to absorb nutrients. So H. pylori is actually believed to be present in the majority of the world's population. It's a major cause of gastric inflammation and stomach cancer. So eating too quickly is another cause of low stomach acid levels and bloating, of course. So food that is consumed without proper chewing, it actually aggravates the digestive process. We really need to be sitting in our chair and focused on the meal, chewing our food completely, and letting it go down to the stomach and digest completely. In circumstances of low stomach acid, the gallbladder and other organs cannot secrete adequate enzymes to metabolize food in the small intestines. This can further result in the accumulation of bacteria in the small intestine that have been introduced with food and have not been broken down from acid. Similarly, stress depletes stomach acid. When a perceived threat is detected, the body innately is designed to shut down non-essential processes in order to conserve energy. So if we're facing a threat, we're not going to be putting our energy into digesting our food. No, we're going to take that blood supply and put it into other areas. So our digestive system and our reproductive system really take the hit whenever we're under a lot of stress. So remaining in a state of chronic stress, especially during and after a meal, can indirectly shut down digestion. So we want to be fully relaxed when we're eating as well. You want to eat your biggest meal when you are able to sit down and relax and enjoy your meal. So your gallbladder is another issue that can happen whenever we are dealing with bloating. So enzymes released by the gallbladder are vital for optimal digestion of fat. When fatty foods pass through the small intestine, the gallbladder then secretes bile, and this emulsifies dietary fats and creates fatty acids for easy absorption into the body. The gallbladder is essential to digest fats and vitamins, which require a fat for increased bioavailability. This includes vitamins A, D, E, and K. So you must eat fat with these vitamins in order to properly absorb them. But then on top of that, you must secrete bile in order to absorb them. It is also responsible for blood sugar metabolism, and it aids in the excretion of toxins out of the body. So when your gallbladder is malfunctioning, you may experience intestinal upset. You may even have nausea, gas, bloating. All of these are especially prevalent after a meal high in fat. Serious conditions can also be partly to blame for a slow liver and poor gallbladder functioning. So fibromyalgia and hypothyroidism, those are very common. To determine if your gallbladder is to blame for your stomach bloating, here are some other symptoms. I'm just going to list some symptoms that may also occur. So headaches and migraines are something to look out for if you experience those. Evidence of bacterial or parasite overgrowth in the small intestines. So ways to pick up on that would be or diarrhea, lots of bloating, lots of gas, maybe even burping and belching, and just nutritional deficiencies overall. Chronic pain in the right shoulder or near the right shoulder blade. This is usually indicative of a gallbladder issue. Rectal itching and fatty or light colored stool. If you notice your stool has a light or whitish color to it, this can be an issue with your gallbladder. Constipation or diarrhea. Problems losing weight. This can be related to your gallbladder. If you're not secreting bile, you're not digesting your foods appropriately, and your body can respond by keeping you from losing weight, maybe gaining weight. Heightened sensitivity to chemicals. So if you're having issues like being around chemicals or someone spraying perfume and you're super sensitive to it, you may have issues with your gallbladder. So that is something to check out. Blistering or peeling, itching of the skin, persistent runny nose, a bitter taste in the mouth following eating, yellowing of the skin, pain in the right rib cage accompanied by a fever. Signs of fat-soluble vitamin deficiencies such as dry skin and brittled hair, a loss of appetite. Hormonal imbalances leading to abnormal sexual function are also another indicator of poor bile secretion. Reason being, your hormones are actually produced from cholesterol. So you do need high amounts of cholesterol in order to produce these effectively, but you also need bile so that you can absorb the cholesterol appropriately. So these serious health problems can be limited if not avoided using natural healing strategies. Improving gallbladder health can be as simple as stimulating gallbladder function with bitter herbs. So we like to use cilantro, turmeric, milk thistle, parsley, ginger is fantastic, Swiss chard, things of that nature. Consuming an anti-inflammatory diet high in medium chain triglycerides is also really important. These are just easier to break down. You don't need bile to really break down MCTs. So this would be something found in coconut oil, avocados, and grass-fed butter. They're just easier to digest. They're a great source of energy, and they provide hormone and immune system support. So we've talked a little bit of bacteria. 50% of patients with liver cirrhosis and celiac disease and 90% of elderly patients with lactose malabsorption have been shown to be affected by small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. If you're experiencing the symptom of a bloated stomach, you may want to test for small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. And if this is present, you may be at an increased risk for more severe health problems. Reason being, this does impair your body's ability to absorb nutrients. The presence of excess microorganisms in the small intestines produce methane gas and sulfur, resulting in bloating and a variety of other digestive disturbances, such as food intolerances, diarrhea, cramping. These complications, they can manifest as autoimmune diseases, diabetes, irritable bowel syndrome, chronic fatigue, neuromuscular disorders, and deficiencies in vitamin B12 and minerals such as iron and magnesium. So what would cause SIBO? What would lead to that? Medications like ibuprofen and steroids, they definitely can lead to that. Proton pump inhibitors, you decrease your stomach acid, you're going to decrease your ability to sterilize your food, which means you can end up with low stomach acid and pathogens thriving in your low acidic environment. Antibiotics can tear down your gut lining, pesticides, heavy metals, toxins, etc. Individuals with SIBO are advised to test for FODMAPs. For those of you who don't know what FODMAPs are, it stands for fermentable oligo, di, and monosaccharides and polyols. Basically what this means is that different bacteria can ferment different types of foods. These things are present in different vegetables, different fruits, different grains, and it just depends on the individual, what they're sensitive to. So taking out the FODMAP foods and then adding them in one by one to see which ones you're sensitive to is a great strategy for not feeding the bacteria anymore. So following a low FODMAP diet, you want it to be rich in plants, proteins, pasture-raised eggs, wild salmon, coconut or olive oil, herbs, fruits, vegetables, all the healthy stuff. So yeast can actually cause bloating. So yeast is one of those things, it can cause so many disruptions in the body. It is a normal thing to grow in the body. It's supposed to be in the throat and the lower bowel. However, the problem happens whenever yeast begins to overgrow, and it can overgrow when we are under a lot of stress, the usual causes that I just listed with SIBO. So sugars, grains, lots of carbs, high stress, excess exposure to heavy metals, toxins, these sorts of things are going to lead to yeast overgrowth. So whenever we have yeast overgrowth, this can release up to 100 toxins inside of the body, and whenever this is released, it can trigger certain responses. So one of them that I think of is acetaldehyde, and whenever this is released, I think of being hungover. You know, when you drink too much alcohol, the effects you feel the next day where you feel hungover is actually because of the excess amounts of acetaldehyde. So I relate that to the yeast overgrowth with the acetaldehyde release. A lot of people can actually feel hungover and they're like, I haven't been drinking, I've been eating fine. Well, if you have yeast overgrowth, you need to kill it. You need to take things that are actually going to kill it off, and you need to have an anti-inflammatory diet that doesn't feed the yeast. So if you have things like mood swings, cognitive impairment, sugar cravings, fatigue, that would be other symptoms of Candida yeast overgrowth. So when Candida proliferates well enough that it reaches the bloodstream, like I said, it can secrete more than 70 various toxins at a time. It can also clog up the liver, which can impair bile flow. So Candida yeast can cause bloating indirectly through bile flow as well. Other things to look for Candida overgrowth include athlete's foot, skin rashes, hives, eczema, psoriasis even, mood imbalances, anxiety is a big one, rectal or vaginal itching, UTIs, memory disturbances, ADHD, autoimmune disorders, seasonal allergies, low energy, abnormal feeling, white lesions on the tongue or inner cheek. So whenever I have a patient who has yeast overgrowth problems, I change up their diet, and then I also give them natural things to help. So grapefruit seed extract, bayberry, and zinc. All of these are really important for overcoming the yeast overgrowth. So food sensitivities is another one that's really important to figure out, and it can be really difficult. This is definitely a trial and error kind of situation. So what we do is we take out the most common irritants. This includes things such as soy, corn, sugar, grains, nuts, legumes, nightshade vegetables. I'm probably missing something, but those are some of the most common irritants, and we will actually take those out of the diet for 30 to 40 days and then reintroduce them one at a time. We really need to be aware of labels. It's very hard to go grocery shopping and buy anything that doesn't have these ingredients added to them, so just be on the lookout. And then we also use a food journal. We use pulse testing, like biofeedback, to figure out what exactly you're sensitive to, and people usually know. I can say this, whenever I have a client who's like, I don't know what's causing what, and then we go through this process, she or he, they will end up telling me, oh my gosh, it was so obvious when I added in that food how bad I felt. It was immediate. So this is a great way to pinpoint a reason for bloating and food sensitivities. So like I said, I was going to add one more, and that was estrogen. Essentially, ladies, what can happen is whenever you have excess amounts of estrogen, or if it's that time of the month where estrogen is starting to surge, this can cause temporary water retention. Where it becomes problematic is when the bloating doesn't go away and you've checked all these other things. Estrogen dominance is something that can cause continuous bloating, and this just means that you're retaining water. You're retaining water through all parts of your body, and it just causes uncomfortable weight gain. So estrogen dominance is something to look out for. We want our estrogen and progesterone to be balanced. So that was my video about bloating. Thank you for listening. Like I said, my name is Haley. You can email me with any questions at nutrition@drjockers.com. We'll be happy to assist you. We do lab interpretation, so if you have any labs that you would like me to review with you, you can send them over. I'd be happy to talk with you about them and give you a more in-depth look at what exactly is going on. All right, thank you for joining.